God, if you'd told me a year ago that I'd end up hiding in my mother's guest room like a teenager who just got dumped, I would have rolled my eyes and gone back to my spreadsheets. My name is Vanessa, I'm 43, and this is the story of how I ran from the man I thought would protect me, only to find him waiting at the place I thought was safe. Tom and I met in Austin at one of those corporate seminars where no one really wants to be there, but everyone pretends they do. He had on this faded blue shirt, sleeves rolled just above the elbows, holding a black coffee from 7-Eleven like it was a fancy cocktail. He wasn't the best-looking guy in the room, but he was the calmest. I noticed that first. We talked during the lunch break about absolutely nothing, like how terrible the pasta salad was, and how every hotel ballroom smells like carpet glue. And somehow it stuck. That night, he emailed me, "You seem like someone who'd rather be barefoot than in heels." I didn't know what that meant, but I smiled like an idiot reading it. 6 months later, we were married. I know. Fast. Too fast. But when you're in your late 30s and someone shows up looking like stability with a half-decent smile, you want to believe. Especially after years of bad dates and colder nights. He said all the right things. "You're my home. I'll never let you go. You deserve to rest." God, that one, "you deserve to rest," it felt like being seen. I didn't realize it would later become a leash. At first, he really did treat me like a queen. Morning coffee waiting on the kitchen counter. Dinner ready when I got home. He even packed my lunch some days, little post-it notes tucked inside, saying, "Crush the meeting, love you." My coworkers swooned. "You're so lucky," they said. And I believed them. I really believed him. But something started shifting when I got promoted to team lead at my firm. Suddenly, the "you work too hard" comments had an edge. He'd say, "You're never home anymore," while literally living at home, jobless for almost a year. Still, I made excuses. He's just insecure. He supported me for so long, it's hard for him now. That kind of thing. But then came the night I canceled our anniversary dinner because of an emergency presentation. He didn't yell. He didn't sulk. He just stared at me for a long second and said, "I thought you'd be different. Not like the rest." That hit like a slap. Like I'd broken some invisible rule in a game I didn't know I was playing. You ever feel that? Like someone built you a pedestal just to kick it out from under you? Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between your success and your relationship? Because I didn't realize it yet, but that night was the first crack in a wall I didn't even know was closing in. The tension after that night didn't explode all at once, it leaked in slowly, like a draft through a cracked window you keep meaning to fix. At first, it was small stuff. He stopped making coffee in the morning. Not a word, not a fight, just silence. I'd ask, "Hey, everything okay?" And he'd smile and say, "Of course," like I was being silly for even asking. Then it was the passive-aggressive remarks. "You're always so tired these days. I guess the company needs you more than I do." Or, "You used to laugh more." He'd say it while I was loading the dishwasher, like it was some casual observation and not a dagger. One night, I came home late, like really late, around 10:30. I'd stayed back with my team, trying to fix a botched client pitch. When I walked in, he was watching a movie on the couch, alone, lights off. I said, "Sorry, long night." And he didn't even turn his head. Just said, "You should have married your job instead." I laughed. Thought he was joking. He wasn't. But still, I told myself, this is just a phase. Every couple has them, right? Maybe we just needed a weekend away, some time to reconnect. I even booked us a trip to New Orleans, our favorite city from when we were dating. Gumbo, live jazz, those cobblestone streets that make you want to hold hands even when you're mad. We never made it there. The day before our flight, he told me he wasn't coming. No explanation. Just said, "I don't want to pretend everything's fine when it's not." I sat at the foot of our bed, suitcase half packed, just stunned. I asked him, then talked to me. "What's wrong?" And he said, "You've changed." As if that was some kind of sin. And maybe I had. I mean, I'd grown. I'd stepped into my career. I started going to yoga again, stopped apologizing for being exhausted, began carving out time for myself. I wasn't just his anymore. But isn't that what marriage is supposed to support? Growth? Becoming? Maybe I was naive to think love meant cheering each other on. Or maybe, and this is hard to admit, maybe he never really wanted me to grow at all. He liked me small, tired, needing him, because that made him feel strong. You ever realize someone loved a version of you that no longer exists? Looking back now, I think that's when the emotional withdrawal turned into something darker. Less quiet resentment, more subtle control. Little things like hiding my car keys when I was running late. "You always misplace things," he'd say. Or checking my texts and pretending it was a joke. Just making sure you're not texting your assistant more than your husband. It felt like I was shrinking in my own house. Like the air was getting thinner. And still, I stayed. Because I thought love meant working through the hard stuff. I didn't want to give up on us. God, I wish I'd known then what I know now. Things started to shift from passive to invasive. One morning I was getting dressed for work, nothing flashy, just a navy blouse and black trousers. Marcus came into the room, leaned against the doorway, and tilted his head. "Do you think that's appropriate for the office?" he asked. I froze, halfway through buttoning my shirt. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "Just saying. You've got a lot of men around you all day. Don't give them the wrong idea." I wanted to laugh, but my stomach turned instead. That wasn't a joke. That was control, disguised as concern. And from there, it just escalated. He started showing up outside my office. I'd see his car parked across the street around lunch. He'd text me, "Just wanted to see your face." Sweet, maybe, if it weren't for the fact that it happened every single day. Even when I said it made me uncomfortable. One day, my assistant, Tasha, leaned over and whispered, "Your husband's outside again." She tried to smile, but her eyes said what I couldn't. I felt embarrassed, trapped, watched. And God, I started lying. Just little things. Saying I had meetings when I didn't, working late when I wasn't. Also, I could grab a coffee with Tasha or breathe for 5 minutes without explaining myself. I remember one night, it was raining, and I sat in my car outside a Walgreens for almost an hour. I wasn't shopping. I just didn't want to go home. Have you ever felt that? That strange guilt when you're more at peace in a parking lot than in your own house? I started sleeping on the far edge of the bed. My shoulders always tight, my body curled up like I was preparing for a blow, not a physical one, but the emotional kind. The kind that makes you question your memory, your worth, your sanity. And every time I thought about confronting him, I'd hear his voice in my head saying, "Don't overreact." That phrase became a prison. Because when someone tells you enough times that you're overreacting, you start to believe it. You start to doubt your own eyes, your own gut. It was a Thursday night when I cracked. He asked me why I hadn't cooked dinner, even though I'd worked a 10-hour shift, had a migraine, and had just walked through the door. I muttered, I didn't have time, and he slammed his fist against the kitchen counter. The sound made me jump. He didn't hit me. He never did. And that became the excuse I fed myself. He's not violent. He's just frustrated. It's just stress. It'll pass. But in that moment, as I stared at the cracked tile, I knew something inside me was starting to break. Not loud. Not all at once. But like hairline fractures in a glass, quiet and dangerous. The next morning, I spilled my coffee all over the kitchen counter. It wasn't like me. I'm usually steady, calm, but my hands were trembling. Marcus didn't say anything at first. He just watched me clean it up in silence. Then, as I was scrubbing the stain with a paper towel, he muttered, "You're always so clumsy lately." That tiny comment hit me harder than it should have. Maybe because it was true. I was dropping things, forgetting things, zoning out mid-conversation. My brain felt foggy. Like I was living in a place where everything was slightly underwater. And you know what made it worse? I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom. Not my best friend, Julia. Not even my manager at work, who had always been like a mentor to me. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that the man I had chosen, the one I had built a life with, could make me feel so small. Every time I considered opening up, I'd hear that voice in my head, "But he doesn't hit you." Like that was the only line that mattered. So I buried it all. I smiled at work. I made small talk at the grocery store. I laughed at Julia's texts. I even posted a happy anniversary photo on Facebook, even though the night before, Marcus had accused me of flirting with the waiter at Olive Garden. Looking back now, I think I was trying to convince myself just as much as everyone else. But the cracks were growing. One night, I came home late from work, stuck in traffic, nothing unusual, and Marcus was pacing the living room. When I opened the door, he didn't even say hi. He just barked, "Where were you?" I told him. Calmly. Rationally. But he didn't want answers. He wanted control. "I called you 6 times," he said, holding up his phone like it was a weapon. "What were you really doing?" That night ended with me sleeping in the guest room, listening to the sound of the rain against the window, wondering how long I could pretend this was normal. I think that's the scariest part, how easy it is to normalize pain. To swallow it down, smile through it, tell yourself, tomorrow will be better. Have you ever done that? Told yourself things weren't that bad just because you didn't want to start over? The next morning, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection like I was looking at a stranger. The light above the sink buzzed. My mascara was smudged. My eyes were dull. And then I whispered, out loud, for the first time, "I don't feel safe here anymore." That moment didn't change everything. But it changed me. I didn't go to work that day. I called in sick. I wasn't physically ill, but I was hollow. You know that kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from your body, but from your soul? That was me. I just couldn't bring myself to get out of bed, to open emails, to smile in meetings. I stayed under the covers, fully dressed, curled up like a child hiding from a storm. I didn't even realize I had been crying until my pillow felt damp against my cheek. Around 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first. It buzzed again. "Julia. Hey, just checking in. You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" I stared at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I started typing, stopped, deleted, started again. My chest tightened like something was stuck inside it. Not a word, not a scream, just pressure. Finally, I sent. "Can we talk?" She picked the bakery on Maple Street, the one with mismatched chairs and cinnamon rolls as big as your hand. I used to tease her that it smelled like sugar and regret. Today, it smelled like comfort. When I walked in, Julia stood up immediately. No questions. No smiles. Just open arms. I hugged her and everything cracked. I didn't cry. I collapsed. Tears poured out of me like I'd been holding them back for years. My knees went weak. She held me up. We sat in a corner booth, and for the first few minutes, I couldn't even form a full sentence. "I don't feel like myself anymore," I said. "He monitors me. Like I'm some project. I'm scared to go home." She didn't give advice. She didn't say, "You should leave him." She didn't roll her eyes or say, "I told you so." She just held my hand. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered. Those 7 words broke something open in me. I didn't realize how isolated I'd become until she said them. Later that day, I went back to my mother's house. She was folding laundry in the living room, the news playing softly in the background. I sat on the edge of the couch, still wearing the same jeans and sweater from the day before, and I told her everything. Slowly at first, like testing cold water, then in waves. Every insult Marcus threw. Every night I sat in silence, afraid of his mood. Every time I questioned my own reality. My mom sat still, her hands in her lap. When I finished, there were tears in her eyes. "I had no idea," she whispered. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" And here's the truth. I didn't know how. I thought being strong meant staying silent. I thought no one would believe me. I thought maybe I was overreacting. But my mom didn't see weakness. She saw pain. She grabbed my hands tightly and said, "You're not going back there. You hear me? You're staying here as long as it takes." That night, I slept in my childhood bedroom. Same floral wallpaper, same bookshelf with faded spines. But it didn't feel like going backward. It felt like breathing again. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. But even in the quiet, even with the door locked and my mom just down the hall, I still woke up at 3 a.m. Because deep down, I knew something. Marcus wasn't done with me yet. 2 days passed. 2 full days of not hearing from Marcus. It felt strange. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. I kept my phone close, jumping every time it buzzed, expecting to see his name pop up, but it didn't. Just bank notifications, emails from work, and a random coupon from that nail salon I hadn't been to in 6 months. On the third morning, I woke up to the sound of someone knocking on the front door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest like it was trying to warn me. My mom, still in her robe, looked out the peephole. Then she turned to me, pale. "It's him," she whispered. God, I can still feel that exact moment in my chest. My stomach dropped. My vision blurred for a second. I walked slowly to the door, staying behind my mom. Marcus stood there. Clean-shaven, collared shirt, holding a box in his hands. A gift. His face looked calm, rehearsed, like a man playing a part in a movie he had directed himself. "Hi, Carol," he said politely to my mom. "Can I talk to my wife?" My mom didn't budge. "Not today." He glanced behind her, spotting me. Our eyes met, and for a split second I saw it, that flicker of anger behind his smile. The way his jaw clenched ever so slightly. He held the box out. Just a few things I thought she might want. Letters. Jewelry. Some photos. I didn't move. Didn't say a word. He looked past my silence and said, "Rachel, come on. You don't have to do this. I know you're upset. But this isn't you." That's when it hit me. He still thought he knew me better than I knew myself. Like he got to define who I was, what Rachel would or wouldn't do. I stepped forward, but only to say, "You're right. This isn't me. Not anymore." I took the box. Closed the door. Inside were some of my things, yes. But also a note. Just one line, scribbled in his handwriting. "If I can't have you, no one will." I swear I felt my blood go cold. I showed it to my mom. She stared at it like it was a weapon. "Call the police," she said. But I didn't. Not yet. I told myself it wasn't a threat, just an empty, desperate sentence. Looking back, I don't know if that was strength or denial. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number. "Nice house. Cozy neighborhood." I bolted upright. I looked out the window. Nothing. No car, no figure, just shadows and quiet suburban calm. I locked every door, checked every window twice. Slept with the lights on. Have you ever felt that pit in your stomach when you realize someone isn't just angry, they're dangerous? I had never thought I'd be in a situation like this. I always believed that leaving would be the hardest part. But what happens when leaving isn't the end? When the person you're trying to escape just won't let go? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have gone to the police right then and there? Because honestly, I didn't. And I wish I had. The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like a hunted animal. My mom offered to call the police with me, but I shook my head. I wanted to do it myself. Maybe I needed to feel like I was the one taking the reins again, that I wasn't just reacting anymore, but choosing. At the police station, I handed them the note. The officer, a woman around my age named Sergeant Moore, looked at me like she actually saw me. Not like a nuisance or a drama queen, but like someone who might be in real danger. "That note," she said, reading it again. "If I can't have you, no one will. That's not a love letter, Rachel. That's a threat." God. Hearing someone else say it out loud made it real. They filed a report. I gave them everything, the message, the note, even Marcus's full name and our old address. Moore gave me a direct number and promised they'd do a welfare check at his place. For the first time in days, I could breathe. Not fully, but at least I wasn't holding my breath anymore. Later that evening, I sat on the porch with my mom, wrapped in a throw blanket. The sun was going down, painting the sky with those warm, orange streaks I used to never notice when I was rushing from work to home, trying to keep everyone else's world turning. We talked. Like, really talked. I told her things I had never said before. Like how I'd always felt I had to earn my place, even in my marriage. How I'd mistaken control for love. How, somewhere along the way, I'd shrunk myself down to fit inside someone else's story. And she just listened. No interruptions. No judgment. Just my mom, holding space for me. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You were always enough, Rachel. You just forgot." That broke something open in me. Or maybe it fixed something that had been broken for a long time. The next few days were quiet. Almost calm. Marcus didn't call. Didn't show up. The police followed up with me twice. They'd spoken to him. He denied everything, of course. Said the note was misinterpreted. But he agreed to stay away. Was I safe? I didn't know. But I felt safer. And that was a start. I started going for walks again. Not far, just around the block, sometimes with my mom, sometimes alone. I'd stop by the local coffee shop, the one with the sticky floors and the terrible lattes, just because being out in the world felt like claiming it back. And somewhere between the quiet mornings and the late-night journaling sessions on the couch, I began to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Like myself. Not Rachel the wife. Not Rachel the one who left. Just me. I even started looking at job listings again. I wasn't quite ready to jump back into the chaos of full-time work, but I was ready to start imagining it. And that's something. I realized something else, too, something huge. It wasn't just Marcus I'd left behind. It was the version of me who thought she had to explain herself to be believed. The version who tolerated things in silence because she didn't want to make a scene. She was gone. And in her place? Someone who had finally, painfully, proudly started over. It's been 6 months now. Half a year since I walked away from the house, from the life, and from the man who once claimed to love me. You'd think I'd feel empty. But the truth? I've never felt more whole. I live in a small apartment now. It's nothing fancy, 2 rooms, squeaky floors, and windows that rattle when the wind picks up. But it's mine. The lease is in my name. Every lamp, every photo on the wall, every scratch on the wooden table, chosen by me. And when I make my morning coffee, hazelnut creamer, 2 sugars, I sit by the window and let the sunlight warm my face. I don't check over my shoulder anymore. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it's the quiet drip of the coffee maker at 6 a.m. Sometimes, it's walking home after work without a pit in your stomach. Marcus tried to reach out once. A short email. Just a single line. I miss what we had. I stared at it for a full minute, then deleted it. No anger. No tears. Just peace. Because what we had wasn't love. It was fear dressed up as devotion. And I don't live there anymore. I won't pretend everything's perfect now. Healing is messy. Some nights, the memories sneak in, the shouting, the slammed doors, the way I used to doubt my own thoughts. But I don't drown in them anymore. I let them rise, then pass. Like waves. One of the biggest things I've learned? Silence doesn't mean strength, and love shouldn't hurt to hold. I started seeing a therapist, someone my mom recommended. Her name's Karen. She has this warm, no-nonsense way of looking at you like, okay, let's figure this out. And she helped me do just that. I'm not the same woman who knocked on her mother's door with a shaking hand and a broken heart. I'm something else now. I'm a woman who said enough. A woman who didn't let one man's fear of her strength dim her light. A woman who started again, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. If you're still listening, maybe this story sounds a little familiar. Maybe you felt trapped in a version of your life that didn't belong to you. Maybe you've told yourself it's not that bad more times than you can count. Let me ask you something. What if you stopped trying to endure and started trying to live? Tell me in the comments, what would your first step look like? Because trust me, no matter how far gone you think you are, you can still come home to yourself. If you've walked through your own storms and came out stronger, or if you're still fighting, you're not alone. Subscribe to hear more stories from women like us, women who refuse to stay down. And if you want more women like us to find this story, women who fought to breathe again, don't forget to like this video.